What's going on? It's Davin. I'm back for another episode of the Free Your Voice, Free Your Life podcast. It's a gorgeous taste of spring day in Chicago. If you're from the Midwest, you know these days they mean a lot after February. And it's March, and we have some sun shining and temperatures increasing. And I even heard a few birds, and it just feels good. Good to be alive, the necessary energy to move forward through the remainder of early spring. We're also on the verge of spring equinox, which reminds me, I want to tell you that on March 16th, I'm going to be offering a spring equinox sound healing experience here in Chicago. If you're in or around the Chicagoland area, I invite you to join me. March 16th, you can learn more at davinyoungs.com. It's going to be at Epiphany Center for the Arts, which I've told you about before. One of my favorite spaces and places in Chicago, a converted cathedral. The actual sanctuary is where the performance happens. And I was talking to a friend about this the other day, and she was reminding me that in the fall I did an event at the Lyric Opera of Chicago, which was pretty epic and beautiful. And she said, I loved it there. She's like, but when we were at Epiphany before, it was as though the walls were talking to me. And I was like, you know what? I kind of feel the same way. There's a lot of great information to gather in that space, and it feels really beautiful to connect and gather in a physical space that was built for spiritual gathering, for people to gather around the idea of collective energy. So, looking forward to that. Um, if you're in or around Chicago and want to join me earlier in the week, you can check out chicagocirclesinging.com. Have our All Sing gathering on March 12th, followed by a little cookie social, which is going to be really sweet. We're doing this quarterly. We sing for an hour and a half, and then we eat cookies together for the last 30 minutes. So hope you'll come and hang if you're around. Um, April's kind of quiet, but then May, I'm headed to Rockport, Maine, another place I've never been before for the Maine HR convention. If you work in HR and your boss wants to pay for you to come, come. I'm going to be there. Let's hang out. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's on a really, really beautiful campus location near the water. And I'm going to be bringing Voxus Experience, VOXUS Experience.com, which is my immersive keynote experience, to the Maine HR convention. And then I'm getting in a car and I'm driving to Saratoga Springs, New York, where I will be, again, performing The Reset, my signature immersive sound experience. You can learn more again at davinyoungs.com or the resetsoundexperience.com. But I'm bringing that to a place called Universal Preservation Hall, which again is a converted church, converted cathedral situation. Looks epic, looks so beautiful. It's actually in the round, which is lovely. It looks like there's this sort of balcony that surrounds the whole space. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. So it's going to be a new adventure, a new place, new location, new people. If you know people in or around Saratoga Springs, New York, please, by all means, tell them about this. And you can always keep up with a lot of this stuff on Instagram. Oh my God, I almost forgot. March 29th, Philadelphia, Kimmel Center, specifically Perlman Theater, The Reset, March 29th. And then, God, how do I forget all this? I'm going to be doing a community circle singing gathering the day after, on the 30th. You can learn all about this at davinyoungs.com. I just got back from Louisville where I did this, where I performed the reset. And then the next day we did circle singing and we had 25 people, strangers in a room together singing. And shout out to my friend Paige and my friend Sally who helped me set this up. But man, I got to tell you, I love doing the reset and I love everything about putting these performances together, but I really, really feel energized when I get the intimate connection of circle singing. So I'm excited to continue to pair and partner this up. If you find out I'm coming to a city near you and you want to help me make that happen, hey universe, let's do it. Okay, I'm really always game. Just anytime I can get people to sing together, I'm happy. I think that's it. That's all I'll tell you for now. Let's get to it. So here is today's podcast. This is the theme that I want to offer you. And I want to bring this to you with a caveat that this is primarily a note to myself. Often I'll be bringing you ideas and thoughts about things that I've worked through in the past, but I see them arising in people I'm interacting with through my coaching clients or what have you. But this one is me talking to you and talking to me right now. And the message is quite simple to begin with. And I mean it with the most the loving and stern energy. And it's this. You don't have to try so hard. You don't have to try so hard. Stop trying so hard. Stop. Now, wouldn't it be so nice if I could just say that and then you could do it? Wouldn't it be nice if I could just say that to myself and then it just happened? I didn't try so much. But I want to talk to you about why and why this is resonating with me right now. And I want to give you a specific vocal example to begin with, a technical voice example. Now, I've been shying away from this a little bit lately. Shying's not the word, but veering away from it. But I want to just remind you, if you ever want to go back and understand more fully what it is that I'm talking about, some of the early episodes of this podcast have very technical information about how the voice works. And one of the things we talk about is what's called vocal register. The really brief way I'll say this is that every human being, you, me, everyone, doesn't matter your sex, gender, age, we all have two primary registers that we can make sound in. The lower register, the register in which I'm speaking, is referred to as chest voice. And that's just called chest because that's where we feel the sympathetic vibration, typically when we're making that sort of sound. The other register is called head voice. That's like when I'm talking like this. When I make that sound, sometimes people refer to that as falsetto too. I use those terms interchangeably. Head voice, I feel that vibrate in my head. When you listen to me perform the reset, which, by the way, I made a recording of, so you can check it out on all streaming platforms. If you go to Davin Young's, or just look for Davin Young's on a streaming platform, you'll find a recording called The Reset. But in the work I do with The Reset, you'll hear me use all of this. The highest sounds I can make and the lowest sounds I can make. And I use a lot of head register, a lot of head voice is an interchangeable term when I'm doing The Reset because I'm trying to add a lot of various colors and tonal textures. Okay, head voice, chest voice. You may know this. You're like, duh. There's a third registration, and it's called mix. And generally speaking, this is an oversimplification, but a general way to think about this is when we take either chest voice and bring it outside of the natural range in which we make these sounds, or head voice and take it outside of the natural range in which we make that sound. So be bringing head voice down lower or chest voice up higher. Now, this is similar to if I call out into, try to make a loud sound, like if I saw you across the street and I went, hey, ah, listen to me. That sound that I'm making that with, that is a mix. It's bringing my chest voice up past my natural break into an area that the head voice would be the dominant sound. And so in order to do that well, I have to incorporate both registers at once. Now, chest voice, bringing chest voice up higher in current contemporary culture is super aspirational for a lot of people. Sometimes you'll hear this referred to in one way, shape, or form as belting. So when you listen to pop music and you listen to someone sing high in a way that almost sounds like they're shouting, but it sounds really impressive and powerful and cool and strong, that's often referred to as belting. And that is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about bringing chest voice up past the break. Okay, this is something a lot of people come to me and want to work on with their voice. How do I bring that strength up higher? How do I really call out and be heard? Side note, Lady Gaga just released a new album. And I have to be honest, I've not been a little monster in my life. I've always had profound respect for Gaga, her work ethic, her human rights advocacy. I have a ton of respect for her. Musically, not ever been my number one, but always a part of the popular canon. So I'm very knowledgeable about the Lady Gaga experience. But I have to say, this album, I think it's really good. It's really resonating with me, really connecting with me. And she performed on Saturday Night Live the other night. And I'm just amazed at the mix that this woman has developed here in her late 30s, almost 40s, because she can get into that sort of shouting place, but it doesn't cost her too much. She can do it for quite a long time, very impressively. And it really speaks to her capacity, the work that she's done to expand her voice as a whole. It's very impressive. Technically speaking, it's very impressive what she does. But the reason that I say this to you is that, like I said, a lot of people want to do what Gaga does. They want to be able to call out high. They want to be able to sing and belt high notes. And so oftentimes in voice coaching, we're working on what does this mean? Now, the thing that is so complex about this specifically is chest voice, energetically, functionally, is heavier, stronger, earthier, um, more weight, whereas head voice is lighter, sweeter, more agile, more flexible. So to bring chest voice up higher, or vice versa, is to combine those two elements at once. To bring chest voice up is to get lighter. I always offer this simple phrase that if you want to be successful in your mix and you want to bring chest up higher, you have to learn to get lighter and brighter. Now, the irony of this is, in order to do so, you also have to develop a greater capacity of strength. You have to bring your chest voice up higher slowly over time by increasing strength and coordination. When I think about coordination, I've said this many times before, but I think about the balance of strength and flexibility. I think about what it means to both push and stretch at the same time. So this is at the heart of what it means to become a better singer and bring your chest voice up higher if that's the sound that you're aspiring to make. It's not technically any better than any other sound, but in the culture we tend to enjoy this. I have lots of ideas on that too, but that's for another episode. Okay, so you have to develop this strength to be able to do this matched with an increased relationship to the flexibility, the agility, the lightness, the sweetness, the brightness of head voice. Our minds often can hear that and understand that intellectually. But when we look for the sensation, the experience in our body, we often resort to efforting more, trying harder. When we watch someone like Gaga or Beyonce or Aretha Franklin or Celine Dion or Whitney Houston, or it's really hard for me to come up with non-pop diva females when I think about this, but you know what I mean? Like the singers that just like really let it rip. Okay, Chris Cornell, that's a good 90s reference for my 90s babies out there. Um, the people that can just wail up high. Luther Vandross. Oh my God, Luther Vandross. One of my favorite singers of all time. The people that could wail up high, when we think about that, we think as we watch them, typically, that must feel so strong and that it must be a lot of work, that it must be like lifting very, very heavy weights. And so when we try to do it ourselves, we tend to put more force, more pressure, more in it. And it often fails. What happens is then we tend to carry too much weight up in the sound, and the sound sort of tops out. It'll get heavy. It'll feel like we bump into the ceiling. It'll feel like it just gives out on us, or that it just becomes heavy and dark and covered and too shouty or woofy. The opposite of what I said earlier, brighter and lighter. So let me give you just a brief example here. Um, so if I go, and so that's a pretty good chest T belt. Let me go a little higher. And I will always. Okay. Now, if I'm bringing too much weight up in the sound, that sounds like, and I. Do you hear how that gets dark and covered? That's how I used to sing all the time. When I was in my early 20s and I'd try to go for high notes, I just would muscle through those. And the hallmark of that experience is that I would get fatigued and tired. My voice would just get hoarse quickly, and I would just feel like I was topping out. I felt like there was nowhere else to go. When I finally learned to mix my voice, thanks to the genius of Jeannie Levetri and somatic voice work, when I finally learned, and this wasn't until my 30s really, that I learned to mix my voice well, it was the biggest light bulb of my life. Because what I realized was the experience did not feel effortful. It didn't feel like I had to lift heavy weights. In fact, it felt quite free and easy. I also recognized that that was a hallmark of being strong. I've used this analogy before. I often use it with my clients, but there was a time in my life where I started working out, doing high intensity interval training and not CrossFit, but CrossFit type stuff. And I had this one day in particular where I was walking up the stairs of my building into our condo, and I just knew all of a sudden that walking upstairs was easy. Like getting my body up the stairs felt light. And that was a really interesting experience because I recognized that because I was stronger, it felt easier. Now, again, it might seem like duh to you, but oftentimes when we conceive what it would take to get stronger, we imagine that we have to push harder. We try to fast forward to that place and we think that we have to push to get there. When in truth, we have to slowly, incrementally learn to relate to our muscles and the coordination of balancing that with agility and flexibility over time. And then as you gain strength, the experience emerges where you just feel like that's pretty easy. That felt simple. That didn't feel like I had to push. Whitney Houston singing that, and I Will Always Love You, she was not pushing. Now, that doesn't mean that she wasn't giving it her all or energizing the sound, but I guarantee you she just took a deep breath and opened her mouth, and that came out. And it came out well because she'd been doing it for so long and because she had this natural gift and she learned to embrace her natural gift. This is what you're seeing transpire in so many singers who do this sort of thing well. They have a proclivity to do something and then they follow that and they allow it to move through and they become better and better and better and better. And it just eventually is easy. Now, when I say it's easy, I don't mean it's easy in terms of the focus and the attention. And again, I always use the word energy. Energy and pressure are well described when I say I'm singing high in a belt. When I go, ah, those sounds, they are high energy, high pressure. But do they feel effortful? No. Thank God, because they used to. Okay, what does this have to do with anything? Well, hopefully, if you're working on your voice, maybe that's just a good affirmation that you're on the right path, or that maybe you need to consider pursuing a little bit of a different trajectory when it comes to improving your belt. Here's where I want to relate this to me and you and everything else we're doing. Think about for a moment something that you want to achieve, something that you want to create, something that you aspire for, something that you dream of, something that you're working toward, something that you have an idea that you might be able to manifest or create. Think for just a moment, what path are you on? Are you trying to become a better singer? Are you trying to become a performer? Do you want to paint more? Do you want to be a public speaker? Do you want to be in front of people and feel easy in how you're in front of people? Do you want to run races? Do you want to make a ton of money in your job? Do you what? What? Now, my question is for you, and my question for me has been, how hard are you trying to get there? How hard, how much effort, and how much work and force are you trying to employ to get there? Now, there might be, well, I would gather that there are likely two types of people listening to me right now. So if you're like me, you're applying a lot of force and a lot of pressure, and your foot is on the gas and you're muscling through. And then maybe if you're the other type, the pressure, the gas, the pushing, that all just feels like so much that you immediately take your foot off the gas completely. That you're just not even able to move forward, that you feel totally stuck and totally static. Both of these experiences, they're two sides of the same coin. In fact, someone like me, and I'm much better about this. I don't really mean to chastise myself. I'm just trying to use this as a way to relate, but I do have a history with burnout. And I can see so clearly that that burnout came as a result of me ignoring the cues and continuing to push forward, push on, despite feeling like exhausted, fatigued, tired. This doesn't feel quite right. Maybe if I just push harder, it'll get right. Maybe if I work more, it'll get right. This is one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is, well, these things never work out for me anyway. I tried, it was hard. I can't do it. We're not going to do it. It's too much. I don't have the strength. I won't be able to come up with what it is that I need to come up with. I don't have the resources, the time. the energy. Yeah. Now, the place that I want to start with you is that likely both of these experiences don't feel good. In fact, probably both of them feel specifically bad in your body. If you sit with this idea for a moment of what it is that you want, what it is that you're working toward, what it is that you've been dreaming of, and you think about where you are in your response to that, and you just ask yourself, where do I feel this in my body? What does it feel like? Does it have a place? Does it have a location? Does it feel warm and gentle and light? Or does it feel tense and tight and constricted and uneasy? Likely the second options are what it is that you might notice. I do want to offer as a caveat if you don't feel anything, that's okay. This is a process, this is a journey. But the body is always telling you the truth. Specifically, the nervous system is telling you the truth of your response to this experience. It's in relationship to the story it is that you're creating about your pursuit or lack thereof. So, when we connect with the body, there's this intelligence, there's this beautiful way of actually getting the most objective information possible. Now, guess what? That's true with the voice too. Remember, I told you when I used to sing so big and so loud, my voice would get fatigued. My throat didn't feel good. My body felt fatigued afterward. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. Simultaneously, if someone's trying to sing so loud and it's just coming out small, or someone isn't able to make that big sound and they're holding back, often that feels fatiguing too. That feels exhausting in a way to not be able to let your voice be free. But if you think about this feeling in your body, that's the first point of contact with the truth of your experience. And I want to really reiterate this, that if that feels confusing at first, that's okay. But if you sit with it just long enough, there's a chance that you do have a knowing about it. Because if it doesn't feel good in your body, my friend, it's not good. If it doesn't feel good in your body, it's not good. Remember I told you that Whitney probably opened her mouth. I'm just gonna speak for her. I don't know if she's gonna give me that sort of permission from the dead, but I'll take it. Took a deep breath, opened her mouth, and sang. And I think because we can see on her face, and I've seen this with thousands of singers, that felt good to her. In fact, I guarantee it felt great. It felt like the best feeling. And this is the alternative. This is the other cue that if it feels good in the body, it is good. Trying hard never feels good. Trying hard never feels good. Efforting never feels good. Now, I can hear a lot of you going, well, how do I get to that next point? Like, how do I then, well, like, I'm not supposed to work at it? Well, everything I do is supposed to feel good? Not exactly. I can't tell you how much time and effort and energy I have put into being able to sing the notes I just sang for you. I can't tell you the countless hours, the frustration, the tears. I can't tell you what a journey it was to be able to find my way where I am now. And I can't tell you, even in the midst of everything that I'm doing now, how frustrated I get sometimes, how problematic it feels that I'm not further than I am. No one else is saying this. This is the internal monologue in my head, but it creeps up often. And my natural instinct is to then push harder, to work harder, to do more, to do the most. No one has ever accused me of not doing the most, but they soon will. After I re-listen to my own words in this podcast. No, but seriously, this is a message that I'm really working to embody more and more and more. Because yes, you will experience tension. Yes, you will experience frustration. Yes, you will experience irritation. Yes, you will experience fatigue. And these are all growing edges for you. They're all things that you need to bump up against. They're all experiences that you need to have. It's the only way to grow. The only way to actually affect change is to bump up against that discomfort. But you will not be as successful as you want to be if you keep barreling through. What I want you to know is that when you get that cue, this doesn't feel good. This isn't quite right. This feels like it's causing pain. This is causing me suffering. This is one thing I think to myself a lot in my work. I'm like, am I suffering right now? Because if I'm suffering, it ain't right. Stop. Pause. Don't try so hard. Take a walk. Very literally. Step away from the computer. Step away from the paintbrush. Step away from the microphone. Take a walk. You don't have to suffer more. You don't have to suffer more. You don't have to suffer more. I promise if you give that space, if you give that pause, your relationship to the suffering will shift and change. And if you give enough space, you'll start to have the capacity through reflection about how you can pursue what it is that you want with less of that suffering. You might not travel down that path so long, so hard, so far. Now, if you are someone that is suffering because you're not doing anything, because you feel like it's all going to be too much, you are then required to bump up against a different kind of discomfort. The one that's like generally feels weird, strange. So, what I wanted to offer to go back to my voice analogy is that a lot of times when we take people into these sounds for the first time, myself included, when I made that mixed sound for the first time, my initial reaction to it was that it was totally weird. I thought it was strange. I thought it sounded odd. I thought it was unlikable. I couldn't imagine anyone would have liked that sound. I didn't care for it. But that to me is always the cue that there's somewhere else to go and explore. This is something I say to singers all the time, but I don't think it's about singing. I think it's about quite honestly everything in life. If it feels bad, if it feels bad, if it hurts, if it causes pain, if it causes suffering, stop. Don't do it. If it feels good, keep going. Keep going. Don't be afraid to pursue goodness. There's more. I promise there's always more. We live in an abundant universe. But the most interesting place to be is if it feels confusing, weird, strange, uncertain, impossible. That is always the most growing and expansive path. When you have that feeling of like, I don't think I can do this. There's no way that I can do this. That doesn't seem possible. I can't ask for that much money for this job, or I can't quit my job and pursue this other thing, or I can't. Those are always the cues to start to pay attention to. And I'm not saying you react bigly immediately, but I'm telling you if it feels weird, if it feels strange, if it feels uncertain, go further. Go further. Explore more. Stay curious. Stay interested. Ask other people, ask their opinion, especially people who you trust, not just anyone, but people who are discerning in your life, who have your best interest in mind. Ask them what they think. Don't keep trying so hard. It's not worth it. Even if you manage to achieve what you originally were desiring by efforting your way into it, I promise your enjoyment of the experience won't be what you imagined. The joy comes from the unexpected moments where you're like, I wasn't even trying to make that happen. This is really at the heart of manifestation. This is the most efficient path to creating your dreams, your desires, your goals, your aspiration, your creativity. You got to learn to love it and let it go. Love it and let it go. It's an act of surrender. It's an act of trust. It's an act of allowing. It's an act of receiving. And it requires some real mindset shifts that always start with embodiment practice, that always start with nervous system regulation. It's very difficult to pursue that which feels strange if you're not able to regulate your nervous system. I've recommended this book before, but if you're not aware of it, check out Deb Dana's Anchored. Deb Dana's Anchored. You'll find exercises that will really help you understand what it is to be moving toward a more regulated nervous system in the midst of strange situations, in the midst of discomfort and uneasiness. Because again, that is a very much a part of how it is that you will grow. But if your nervous system response is to fight harder, you'll miss the cues. You will just continue to muscle your way through. You'll bring too much weight up in the sound and you'll wonder why you can't hit the high notes. Or if your nervous system response is to flee, to fly away, to run away, you won't even put yourself in the place of proximity to allow yourself the possibility of growth. You'll exit completely. And again, I use this wordage, don't try so hard, because that both of those responses are actually a response to trying too hard. Trying too hard. Now, let me also offer that I know for me, historically, this has come from an egoic place. This comes from my desire to find worth and value in achieving. I've historically derived so much of my identity from being an achiever, a doer. I make things happen. I'm a manifester. I'm a creator. And in some ways, it's true, but I'm not different than other people. In fact, if we are all ego-less in our understanding of how human existence works, we all have the same capacity to create. That doesn't mean that we won't create differently. It doesn't mean we won't create at different scales and different timelines and different ways with different mediums, with different people, but we all have this capacity. But when I get too tied up in the idea of myself having like a special version of this capacity that people expect of me and actually need from me, I start to tie my worth and my value to that. I'm just constantly looking to achieve the next thing so that people like me. I'm just constantly looking to be at the next stage so that I'm lovable. And it's a load of bullshit. It's not true. Again, if you understand that this capacity, this ability, this superpower is inherent to who you are, you don't then need to achieve anything. You simply head down a path of curiosity around what you can do with it. If I'm here to create, if that is my divine calling, if I'm here to make beautiful things and connect people and make art and express, if I can move my ego out of the way, I will just find a beautiful path of curiosities that will be delightful. Time and time again, I will be surprised at what I uncover. I will be shocked. I will be in awe of what lies before me. But if I have some sort of solid grip on what I believe the outcome should be, I will push. If I think I know what that belty sound is, you better bet your ass I'm going to yell to make it happen. And then I yell and it kind of happens, but the version that I've created, it's disappointing. It's just the sound of me trying too hard. Trying too hard. It takes a lot of bravery to take your foot off the gas. It takes a lot of selflessness to understand the nuance of this conversation. You will want to do more. You will think you should be doing more. You will think you should be doing more and pushing harder. People will tell you you need to work harder. And while there may be aspects of this that are true in terms of your relationship to pursuing your curiosity, it's not true in terms of the fatigue, the exhaustion, the internal pangs, the tightness in your chest, the suffering, the sweat, and the blood. I promise you don't have to bleed to get where you want to go. You have to feel a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit strange, a little bit weird, and have the capacity to self soothe enough to stay there long enough to move a little bit further. And then poof, it happens. That thing happens. The sound, it just comes out and it comes out so different than what you could have ever possibly imagined. And you think to yourself, how did this happen? That's not what I thought at all. But then a light bulb goes off and you go, it was this? It was this the whole time? You mean I didn't have to do all that? I didn't have to work so hard. I didn't have to try so much. You mean it was just there like that? Yeah, there, just like that. In fact, it's here right now. Can you uncover it? Can you discover it? Can you allow it? Can you receive it? Can you take a deep breath? And can you just let yourself marinate in all of the possibilities for you and your beautiful, beautiful, beautiful voice and your beautiful life? We're in this together, my friend. It's the work of a lifetime. It's not a switch we flip on or flip off, but it is possible. Your path can be playful and fun and curious and easeful at times. And the challenges, they can feel useful. They can feel like they're a part of the bigger story. You can relate to them in a way that goes, oh, I get it. This is just a part of it. This is a part of my path. And when you find yourself on that sort of trajectory, you laugh, you smile, you play. But most importantly, you're open to connecting not only with your inner self, with your inner being, but with everyone around you and the universe at large. So let's be in connection together. Let's do this together. Let's take our foot off the gas. Let's take a deep breath. Let's allow. And let's see what sort of magic shows up. Until next time, peace.